I would never miss it. That's not anybody. We can start. All right. Let the governing board meeting be called at 5 p.m. All rise for the flag, please. Ready? Begin.
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You roll call. Let it be noted that Mr. Frilos is absent. All other governing board members are present. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for October 25th?
Motion. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Approval of the October 11th regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yes. Correction.
Oh, with the corrections,
Oh,
which
on-
is,
On page 3, there was a reference under Mr. Magley's report, and it said statues, and it's supposed to be status.
so that is noted.
Yes.
So then we can approve with the correction.
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion to approve with the correction?
Yes, I'll approve with the correction.
Thank you, Ms. Shedd. Second.
Second.
Neda, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Hearing session, the audience members may request to address the board on an item on or off of the agenda per board bylaw 9323. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the governing board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board limits the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. The total time allowed for public comment shall be 30 minutes. Mr. Miramontes.
We have one request to address the board. This is Beverly Chang.
Good evening, esteemed members of the board, Dr. Miramontes, Dr. Cantu, and the Buena Park School District family. Ever since I have joined the Buena Park School District staff, our commitment to meeting the needs of our diverse population of students has always been at the forefront of our mission. I'm here to highlight the hard work and dedication that the district and site staff have provided for one special group of students that make up a little over 75% of the student population, our English language learners, or as I like to refer to them, our multilingual learners. Given the challenges of teaching ELs, as well as the often unpublicized multiple joys and rewards that come from supporting ELs to achieve in schools and beyond, district site admin and teachers have focused on EL education from a new perspective. Methods and resources available for teaching ELs, such as Shelter Instruction Observation Protocol or SIOP, specially designed academic instruction in English or SCI, and designated and integrated ELD, and provided by the district through trainings and professional development, have provided an equitable education for our English learners. Beginning with district-wide professional development and designated and integrated ELD with Dr. Eugenia Mora Flores, teachers now are trained to know his or her EL students' backgrounds, including their linguistic, cultural, and social emotional strengths, as well as areas of need in order to determine which language scaffolding to use, and also when to remove those scaffolds, and what the types and amounts of scaffolding are to implement. We have also had the opportunity to preview and review ELD curriculum, such as English 3D by Houghton Mifflin via Dr. Kate Kinsella. EL's ability to access the content they must learn in order to be successful in school and beyond is predicated upon their ability to acquire and use complex academic language. All teachers of ELs, including content area teachers and ELD teachers, face the challenge of teaching academic language and challenging content simultaneously to EL, quite often without sufficient resources to do so. Teachers have asked for a curriculum to meet those needs of our English learners, and district has started the process to adopt a curriculum. Dedicated educators of ELs know that ELs bring often untapped strengths and have much to offer the educational system in the United States. If educators in district and site administrators, such as Buena Park School District, are providing them an equitable education based on a culturally and linguistically appropriate framework with high but attainable expectations and collaboration among various stakeholders, ELs can and will achieve. Thank you for your time and support.
And that concludes the public comments.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll go into governing board comments. We'll start with Ms. Ahmad today.
Sir. Not a lot happening, but some great things. I was able to tour Beatty Middle School with Dr. Mary Montes and a lot of the admin staff and with Herodia. It was great being inside every single classroom. We got to go inside every single classroom, and it was just wonderful seeing how the kids are just so engaged and seeing them all participate, all, just going back on the right track after that crazy year we had. So I really appreciated it. And I was really happy to meet our, is it our Apple consultant or what are we? So I thought that was just such a great thing that, she was coming with us from class to class and seeing what exactly, hopefully they can help us with, just using our tools as best we can. I wanted to congratulate Emory School for being recognized as one of the best K-8 schools. That report that came out for US News. I think it's a great achievement. I know it's not something we expected, or maybe Principal Lineky did, but great accomplishment. And it's great to always hear good news about our schools. And then for Red Ribbon Week, I've been enjoying seeing all our schools participating in it. It's just such a great thing that we do. I really appreciate how creative the principals get every year with crazy hat days and camouflage. And I'm like, I don't know how they think up all these, catchphrases, but it's always great to see the kids participating, and it's a great conversation starter for all our kids. That's it for me.
Thank you. Ms. Shea?
Thank you. I wanted to highlight that the Wellness Center at one of our junior highs, or middle school, excuse me, was featured on Spectrum News, and they interviewed one of our 7th graders. And I think, especially now thinking about Red Ribbon Week and how we're looking at kids saying no to drugs and for them having other options, making goals for themselves, I think this is a perfect time to highlight the Wellness Center and how it's a nice spot for children to go and take a break if they need to. They can talk to a counselor if they need to, but it's a way for them to get help, and it addresses mental health and emotional health. And I just think it's such a great time after being home for a year and a half. I know that our students and our staff appreciate it. So I was just happy to see that. I joined Ms. Ahmad and Dr. Miramontes and some of our other cabinet members and visiting Beatty, and it was nice to walk through the school. And they're making, every time I go there, they're making more improvements to transition to a middle school. So that's nice to see the improvements that they're making. And I also went to Buena Park Middle School, and they also are making some changes on their campus, but going into all the different classes and seeing how they're having the recreational, the options for kids who want to take the different classes as far as like wood shop and things like this. I thought it was very interesting how they're giving like sixth graders, for example, a chance to see 4 different electives during the year, and then they can choose what they prefer in the 7th and 8th grade. That was something I hadn't seen before, so it's nice to see that. And I went to Whitaker a couple weeks ago, and I was happy to see all the ways the teachers were checking students for understanding as they were progressing through their lessons. And this is so important also, especially with knowing how we're working on interventions and catching the kids up on some of the holes that they may have. So that was great to see. And so I'm looking forward to the reports tonight. Some very interesting topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shen. Ms. Castaneda.
Hi, I hope everyone's having a great Monday. I know it's a little rainy, but God knows that we need the rain, so I hope everyone's staying dry. I do want to say that it is Red Ribbon Week, and it is really great to see all of our schools participating and getting creative, like Ms. Ahmad said, with all the activities with our students and getting them engaged and just excited. I know last year we our schools did it, but it's different when you're in person and then Zoom, because they're able to show off their red shirts and stuff like that. And so just to see their excitement, and it's all well worth it, and it's for a great cause. I also did a few weeks ago visit Whitaker Elementary with Ms. Shed and Mr. Miramontes, and we walked the school, and we visited every grade level, a teacher in every grade level. So that's really great. I have to say that Whitaker has some amazing, outstanding students and some really great readers. We have some really great readers, and they're like second, first graders, and they're already reading above their level. And so that's really great to see. And then also see the teachers interacting with them and asking them follow-up questions, and they're able to answer them, and they're so interactive. And so that was really great. We also did walk in every single special ed class, which was really important to me because it is a transition from going to one campus to a new campus. And so to see that and how it's going and what's going on and stuff. And transition isn't easy, change isn't easy. There's been ups and downs and hiccups here and there, but it's important for everyone to be working together, because in the end, it's how we provide the services to our students, and not just our students, but to their families. And so that's really important. So it's important that we keep working together to provide those great services for them, because it's not just our students, it's their families. I say it again, because it's important. And not just that, but supporting our teachers. Like I said, the transition is not easy. Our teachers need the support. And so I want us to be all working together to provide them the support that they need, because it goes all together. Teachers, our students, our parents. And so we all need to be working together to be providing the best that we can for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Same here. Just want to say hopefully that everyone's doing well, and we got Halloween coming up, so I hope everyone stays safe and not too many rotten teeth and too much candy. No sugar overload. Do we have Monday off that following week? There's staff development. I think we should look into doing a staff development on the Monday after Halloween. Just noted. I know, yeah, some high school district has that in our other district. But anyways, just mental note. I just want to point out a couple of things I saw on even the Friday report. I saw that the middle school Apple coaching program is going great. I think we're in the art of business of teaching and learning. And I think starts with our support for teachers in how to teach effectively and energetically and enthusiastically, all of that. So just saying that I heard the grade level meeting or the team meeting went great. So I think that was a great point I saw. Another thing I saw was that Whitaker was named a demonstration school for Coatson. And I know that's a partnership we have with a great partnership we have in our art. I think their motto is art of teaching and science, art of science of teaching. So to be also having a school named to be a demonstration for others to see and learn shows the quality and caliber of how we implement a program. So I just want to point that out and say good job to, congratulations to Whitaker. And I think Ms. Reader was being recognized. Is that right? Did I say that right? Ryder. I apologize, Ms. Ryder. Ms. Ryder was recognized, and that was great. And I just want to encourage everyone to continue to, again, I always say at every meeting, like month three, but feels like month 9, but keep the energy, keep the fight, keep the positivity going. So I want to throw that out there. And looking forward to Veterans Day as our next holiday. Yes, Veterans Day. And so that's it for me, Dr. Miramontes.
Thank you. Yes, great. I mean, you guys took a lot of my thunder here. Great visits to both middle schools last week. Thank you, Trustee Shedden of Ahmad, for attending along with the district personnel. We witnessed wonderful school environments and lots of learning occurred in both middle schools. The staff at both sites were connecting with students and making the most to engage students. I'm proud of our teachers for the work that's being done to create inclusive classrooms. That was very evident throughout our walkthrough. Yes, congratulations to Emory School. Julie Linecky, the principal, called me. She's like, we have this award. I said, what did you do? She said, I don't know. But we got this award, which is fantastic. So last week, U.S. News and World Report released data rankings for elementary and middle schools. After reviewing the data, and I'm assuming it's prior year's data because we don't have data the last couple of years, of 80,000 public schools. Emory Schools recognized as one of the 2022 best schools in California. So way to go, Eagles. On that same note, congratulations to Whitaker School, which has been named, as Mr. Chong, President Chong had mentioned, has been named a Coats and Workshop Demonstration School. So visiting mentors and fellow teachers from other school districts, the best of the best. Got to remember, Coatson only has the best teachers. You have to apply to become one of these teachers. So the best of the best are coming to Whitaker School. That says a lot about Whitaker School and what they're doing with instruction, to view instruction, interview students, and debrief with classroom teachers. So this is a great honor for our Sharks at Whitaker School. And then lastly, I look forward to tonight's presentation on data. Our Ed Services team led by Dr. Can2 will be presenting tonight on iReady along with her 3 directors on iReady Math and iReady Reading results from the first diagnostic assessment, and also the Panorama Survey that talks about socio-emotional learning. So the areas of strengths and needs will be shared, as well as data-informed action steps for socio-emotional learning and academic supports. So we're looking forward to sharing this baseline information, and we probably can share another one at the mid-year and then one at the very end of the year. I think Panorama is only twice a year though, but the iReady results are shared 3 times a year. So that concludes my report.
Moving on to presentations, recognition of the 2020-2021 District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC officers. Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, we have some partners that work with our school district to give us lots of advice. They work as an advisory group under the direction of Mrs. Michelle Centeno, Director of Curriculum Instruction. I'm going to turn it over to her, and we'll come up here and present the DLAC committee members. Their presentation.
Good evening, Board President Chong, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Dr. Miramontes, members of Executive Cabinet, and our esteemed colleagues and guests. It is a pleasure to introduce and present to you this evening a small but mighty group of parent leaders that we have here in the district leading the charge for our English language learners. Our DLAC board members have really taken ownership of the DLAC meetings. We meet every month to plan what the agenda will be. And this actually beginning last year, they took over actually facilitating the meetings, which is really how a DLAC, a functioning DLAC should work. So I am incredibly proud of our parents and very grateful to them for their commitment, their time, their effort. Again, because they always advocate and champion for not just our English language learners, but all of our students. So Dr. Miramontes, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Let's represent, let's recognize. You want to do it over?
Yes, absolutely. So our president or chairperson of our DLAC is Mrs. Brenda Torres. And so she basically has to coordinate everything for our DLAC, from the agenda to the minutes to the topics. and just rallying support. So Mrs. Torres. And then our vice chairperson is also here, Miss Cynthia Granados from Whitaker Elementary. So she is the right hand of Mrs. Torres and all of us, please. And she also, again, assists to coordinate everything for our DLAC meetings. And next we have Miss Lisbeth Flores, our historian who is here, who documents the DLAC committee as a year. So Miss Flores, thank you for all your dedication. I also would like to recognize, although she is not here this evening, our secretary, Ms. Paola Elizalde, who also helps to just document everything for us. I'm so proud of these ladies. The hard work they did really has just increased our membership. And I have to say, because of their hard work during our FPM process, we had no findings in DLAC. So I'm incredibly grateful to all of you. Felicidades.
And then while I have everybody here, I'd like to give Brenda towards the opportunity.
Mucho que decir acerca de todo el trabajo que como padre de familia nos toca a nosotros, empezando desde nuestro hogar. Pero el corazón de nosotros siempre está en tener unos hijos al nivel de nuestro distrito. Gracias a lo que ha sido la colaboración con la señora Centeno y la señora Erika Claudio, hemos crecido como equipo de trabajo al lado de mis compañeras mamás. Para nosotros esto es tiempo voluntario que lo hacemos de corazón. Y una de las cosas que yo he visto que al transcurso de los años el distrito se está abriendo a la oportunidad de escuchar la abogacía que hacemos como papás y más que nada querer tener equidad, igualdad para cada uno de nuestros estudiantes y sus familias. Este año para mí es una enorme alegría ver que el fruto de muchos años en esta nueva, pues se puede decir, administración con el señor Miramontes ha empezado a crecer y ha empezado a dejar mucho en cada una de las 7 escuelas del distrito. Mi voz es la voz de más mamás, mi voz es la voz de sus estudiantes que los representan a ustedes como distrito y siempre nosotros estamos mirando hacia el futuro. Queremos, se lo comenté al señor Miramontes, para mí este es un distrito pequeño, pero con mucho ruido, porque queremos lo mejor y queremos que esto siga adelante. Queremos que nos sigan abriendo las puertas del progreso y que nuestros hijos sean fluyentemente hablando inglés, con una base muy sólida de todo el trabajo que como distrito y que ustedes, miembros del consejo, ¿verdad?, están ayudando a que esto siga creciendo. En nombre de mis compañeras, en nombre de mis hijos, en el nombre de todos los niños que atienden este distrito, gracias por querer hacer las mejores cosas para que ellos estén bien. Gracias.
So while I have everybody here, we were given, but the month of September is the month, Hispanic Heritage Month Spotlight, right? Last month, we actually, month of August was board member Akmal was recognized as well, right? So this month, Supervisor Cheney from the Orange County 4th District has actually recognized one of our employees and a person who's been an advocate as our parents are. So it's with lots of pleasure that I recognize that she doesn't know that I recognize Mrs. Centeno as the Hispanic Heritage Month Spotlight from Supervisor Cheney's office. Thank you. Gracias por todo. Y vamos en. I'm taking off the lunch on Wednesday. So thank you. Gracias.
You want to translate what was said? Yes.
She was
Okay,
quick.
so she mainly mentioned that she's very thankful to giving the opportunity for the students to grow as well. The voice for her, she's representing the voice of her and other moms as well from other children. And even though this is a small district, it makes a lot of sound, a lot of noise. And she's grateful that they open new doors for learning for to help English learning to keep growing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And the one last thing I just wanted to add that Ms. Torres shared was that she says that she and the other parents are voices, not only for other parents in the district, but also the voices of our students, the voices of our communities.
Gracias.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Centeno. Moving on to our Buena Park School District Student Data Overview, Dr. Miramontes.
Yes, as I mentioned in my comments earlier, with Dr. Cantu and her staff are here to present the district student data overview. Ms. Dr. Cantu.
Thank you. Good evening, Board Member Chung, board members, Dr. Miramontes, cabinet members, and our visitors here and out on Zoom. It is often said that we have a lot of data from our students, but what's important is how we use that data to inform and improve practices so that all of our students not only have access to a rigorous and challenging curriculum, but they are successful as we present that rigorous and challenged curriculum. So we are excited tonight to share with you not only past data, but current data that we will be using to do progress monitoring of our instructional programs so that we can ensure that all of our students are able to reach both reading and math curriculum goals for the school year. Next slide. One of the positive influences with COVID-19, as you know, with every rain cloud, there is often a rainbow. And I think for us, it's the implementation of a balance between our assessments of academics and social and emotional. So we have in our district iReady assessment to determine where our students start off in the year. We call that universal screener. We have it for academics, iReady for reading and math. And we've included a universal screener or a way to determine where our students are in their ability to develop social and emotional skills. We have that in our Panorama Survey, student survey, as well as in our Healthy Kids Survey. Our Healthy Kids Survey is one that we've done in the past many years. We concentrate in that survey on 5th and 7th grade students, and you have to have parent permission in order to give that survey. So that one we have a fewer responses, and we only give it every 2 years. So for tonight, we'd like to focus in on the iReady reading and math for academics progress and the Panorama Survey for social and emotional development. For those are the 2 types of universal screeners that has progress monitoring aligned with it that we can use to document and track the service and the development of our students. So tonight we'll concentrate on iReady and Panorama. Next slide. We look at the background of assessment. You know, if you ask any teacher, what do we spend a lot of time on? And they'll say assessing, assessing, assessing. So what we want to do is to really take a look at how we are assessing and why we are assessing students. we have with us in the past our California state assessments. We haven't done this due to COVID-19 in several years, but in the last time we did in 2019, we were able to see that our students scored in ELA 45% met or exceeded grade level expectations. And in math, 43 students met or exceeded grade level expectations. And the last time we were able to give this, we did analyze this data, and it's represented in our past LCAP plans. And we noticed that we really needed to focus in on differentiating staff development to meet the subgroups of our students. We also noticed from this data was that when we have specific programs such as we're piloting as our Math Academy in 2019, we did see a burst of growth for all students across a grade level that had the Math Academy teachers. So taking that information, we want to make sure that we bring those best practices forward as we have done. In ELA, we noticed that when our students had greater opportunities to talk before writing, to talk after reading, they were more likely to be able to show a greater understanding and comprehension on also the CASP test, but also in iReady. So we want to really move forward with strengthening our voice and choice. And finally, we have aligned our workshop with best practices of current assessment. And we do see a great alignment with what we're doing in ELA with best practices. So we want to continue moving that forward. And again, as I said, we have learned that we do need to differentiate our professional learning for our teachers to focus in our subgroups, our English language development students, our low socioeconomic students, to make sure they have rigorous access to a curriculum. And then also looking at our foster youth, because we know that they come and go. So we need to be prepared as we welcoming new students, have a rigorous program designed for them. Next slide. So as I said, we want to focus in on the data that we can actually use for progress monitoring. Last year, our iReady data, although we weren't able to clearly define the best assessment setting for all students, we did give the iReady at the beginning of the year and mid-year and the end of the year. So I want to share with you our initial data for iReady last school year. As you can see, of the students that we assessed, the first window we had 3,581 students. And you have to say we have a few that vary with the windows. Remember, we were distance learning during this time. When we came back in window 3, we had a little bit over the 3,000, but there was some significant change that we'd like to highlight. And it's good for once to see negative and some positive. So the negative, we have more students moving outside of our 3 or more years below grade level, which is the red, into our yellow is decreasing, because we want to see an increase in the green, which is those students that are at or above grade level. So again, when we compare our initial assessment in iReady for reading and math last year with beginning initial with the end, we do see fewer students in those red, light red, and yellow, which is below, significantly below grade level, and increase in student in at or above grade level. Next slide. We want to spend the bulk of our time with you, and we've got a lot of data to share, but we want to spend the majority of our time looking at this year's data, because our accountability is moving kids from the beginning of the year, which we call our D1, our first window, with our January window and our end of the year May window. So this triangle is a way to look at the students in green, tier 1 students, those students who are ready for grade level instruction, 25%, which means that they are at grade level. And current standards, because they take this test identifying the standards that have not yet been taught. We have 35% of our students that right now are within tier 2, a year or less below grade level. And then we do have 40% of our students that would be considered significantly below grade level. But remember, none of these standards have technically been taught this year. This is an assessment to determine what standards they have strengths in and what standards they have needs in at grade level. Next, we'd like to present to you the iReady for Reading by School results. Next slide.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. So as you can see here, these are the overall placement scores for each of our school sites, including the All Academy. These scores, again, are from the first diagnostic given this year. And we are currently in our third year of administering iReady testing to our students. So the format is very familiar to our kids and really is not an issue with the exception of our newest students, our case students. So our kids are very comfortable with this assessment. Some of the observations that you can see here, overall at our elementary levels, we have Gilbert, Pendleton, and Whitaker, who have anywhere between 12 to 13% of students reading at or above grade level. And I should have started by saying we are highlighting our reading scores here. Next, we have Corey Elementary, which has approximately 34% of students reading at or above grade level. And then we have Emory, which has approximately 46% of students at or above grade level. As Dr. Cantu mentioned, this is the first diagnostic, so this is assessing grade level standards that have not been taught yet. Some of the possible reasons for some of the data that we see before us is that we know that last year was an exceptional year and that there was a lot of inconsistency with the instructional model that we had here in our district, just like all districts across our country. For some students, it was difficult to perhaps keep them engaged during the learning that was provided during distance learning. Next slide, please. Now we're going to zoom in a little closer and take a look at the results by grade levels. So starting with kinder, moving all the way through 8th grade. Again, these are from our first diagnostic. And you can see that overall, most of our grade levels have numbers of students reading at grade level or above within the 20 to 30% range. The exception here would be 3rd grade, which is currently scoring at 35%. Again, possible reasons for some of the findings. Last year, I did not really emphasize enough what a unique situation that was for our students and our staff. MTSS this year will be critical in order for us to really mitigate some of the learning loss that we see across our grade levels. Next slide. What you see here is our English learner students and how they did this year with iReady reading as compared to our non-English learner students. So 12% of our ELs are at or above grade level as compared to 32% of students who are non-EL. This isn't completely surprising because our English learner students, as their name indicates, are acquiring language proficiency. I do want to remind everyone that our trend data from our previous EL report showed that our RFEP students did perform significantly better on the SBAC assessment in 2019, where we had, for our English only students, 48% scoring at or above. That's my voice again. And for our RFEP students on SBAC, 70% scored at or above.
So I could give you a little break. On the slide before it said 2018. Are they really 2018 results? Okay.
All right, let's take a look at the next slide. Very similar, only this slide is for our special education population. So here, as you can see, our special education students are scoring classes so that I can really see the scores. are performing at about 8% at or above grade level in the area of reading, as compared to students who are not in special education, who are scoring at about 27% at or above. One modification that we could make is to increase the awareness of our special education staff and students about the different accessibility tools that iReady provides when taking this diagnostic. Next slide, please. And now what you see are the scores for our students who are economically disadvantaged. So as you can see, there is a gap between students who are at or above grade level in our socioeconomic group as compared to students who do not fall within this subgroup. So some of the questions that I thought about as I was looking at this data was, did all of our students, especially our students with who come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, have consistent access to internet connectivity at the start of distance learning last year? Because that very well could have impacted their learning. Also, were they able to have really supportive systems in place at home that were conducive to learning? We know that the impact of COVID not only impacted our students, but our families as well, as they tried to navigate this new world. Next slide, please. Now we're going to take a look at overall scores by race. And so you can see here that Asian and Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander populations are scoring higher than other groups, 49% and 45% respectively. iReady does have a separate report for our Hispanic and Latino population, and that was inadvertently omitted from this slide, but I can tell you 16% of our students who are Latino or Hispanic are at or above grade level in reading, 36% are one level below, and 48% 2 or more grade levels below. Next slide. So now we're going to take a look at the same data, only this time for math. So as you can see here, what we want to see from the first diagnostic, and this is from last year, so 2020, 2021. What we want to see is a decrease in the areas of red and yellow and an increase into the green bands, which means that students are at early meeting grade level or mid to above. And as you can see, we actually did show some positive movement. So in the area of red, we did have an increase of 6 in students who were at 3 or more grade levels below. We did have a decrease of 192 students, so that is a positive thing, out of the 2 grade levels or below band. We also had a decrease of 163 students in the yellow band. And then moving into the green band, which is again where we want to see that growth, we had an increase of 155 students who were at grade level and 436 who were at mid or above grade level. So comparison of window 1 versus window 3 initial last year. Next slide, please. And now we're moving into the data, the same similar data for this year. So as you can see, we do currently have about 16% of our students who are working at or above grade level in the area of math. And here we did test approximately 94% of our students. Next slide. We're going to take a look at the results now by school before we get to grade level data. So our grade level data here, or our school site data here, you can see, again, our students are very comfortable with this assessment in math because they're familiar with this, all except for our kinder students who are taking the assessment for the first time. On average, We do have some of our school sites who have scored in the mid-30s in the area of math being at or above grade level. Again, we know that last year was a challenging year, and so we do expect to see growth in this area. One of the things that we are doing this year is we are providing training in CGI, cognitively guided instruction, which will help our kids move beyond just using algorithms into really understanding and developing a conceptual level of mathematics so that they're able to apply that to their work. Next slide. Again, here you can see by grade level how our students are performing. So we're looking in particular at the students who are in the green bands at or above grade level. One of the things that we do need to focus on, really looking at sixth, seventh, and eighth grades to see why we do have an increase in students who are below grade level. So that will definitely be an area that we monitor and watch as we give the second diagnostic assessment and the end of year diagnostic. Next slide. All right, so here we have our English learner scores once again. 9% of our English learners are performing at or above grade level as compared to 20% of non-English learners. Next slide. Our special education students. Here you can see that we have 5% of our special education students performing at or above grade level as compared to those who are non-special education students. Next slide. This is a lot of data for you. We will have some time at the end if you have any questions. Next slide here, we can take a look at the data by students who fall into the socioeconomically disadvantaged group. Again, 10% of our students who are in the low socioeconomic subgroup are performing at grade level or higher as compared to 30% students who do not fall into this subgroup. Next slide, we're going to take a look once again by race. So again, here we do see that our Asian and Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander groups are scoring in the 40th, 30th, and 40th percentiles or percents. Our Hispanic or Latino group, again, we omitted that. We will make sure we have that in the Friday report for you this week. But what I can tell you is that 8% of our students in this group are performing at or above grade level. 42% are performing one grade level below in the area of math, and 50% of our Hispanic or Latino students are 2 or more grade levels below. Next slide. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cantu to kind of look at the overview data. But what's really important about the data is what next? What do we do with the data that we see before us? What actionable steps?
We say that we're student-centered but data-informed. And so as Director Centeno was saying, it's not just enough to have the data at our fingertips as we do. And I do want to point out that iReady is very closely aligned with the state assessment. And more importantly, now we can disaggregate the iReady by our subgroups so that we can be more mindful of not just whole groups of students, but drill down to subgroups, drill down to class level, drill down to individual students. But more importantly than just having the data is doing something with it. So we have some things at our fingertips that we have not had in the past. Our partners are stepping up with helping us to identify ways to really focus in on starting with student strengths and building on those strengths so they are more prepared for grade level. So we wanted to share with you one of the tools that we have at our fingertips that we've shared with principals, and now we will be going out side by side with our wonderful data and assessment person Natalie Benda to really, with our principals, dive into this data, how we can respond to it in best practices of instruction. So we have at our fingertips a tool that will allow us to identify grade level skills and standards and kind of do that backwards mapping into identifying the progression of standards or skills needed to meet grade level assessments. So what you have in front of us is an example of how we can use this tool in small groups, with grade level groups, department groups, as a whole school can identify their essential standards, then use this tool in iReady to identify what students will need to already have mastered to be ready for that grade level. So this will be one of the tools that we will be insisting as a part of our accountability that be used regularly to determine how best to move kids in an accelerated path toward grade level skills. Next slide. In addition to these tools, it's to making sure that the data is in front of everyone. We'll start off with the data conversations with our principal. We've already gone over their iReady assessments. We'll schedule one-on-one meetings with Ed Service team led by Natalie Benda and meeting with our principals so that we can answer any questions with analyzing the data and identifying best practices to move forward. With all of our training that we've had with Dr. Cruz and Solution Tree over the last 2.5 years has really been around how do we empower our teachers as they look at data at their grade level, department level. So we will continue to use our 4 questions of what do we want students to learn, our essential standards, how will we ensure or how will we know that they've learned it, our common assessments, but also small chunks of instruction will be identified at grade level teams or at our department teams. And then we'll also be looking at monitoring. One of the things that we know we need to strengthen is not just identifying what our students need to learn, but how do we know that they are in the right path to learning it in accelerated or in at least a charted path. So we'll be using progress monitor data, which means every 6 to 8 weeks, looking at those students that are in small group instruction. We also have a way to provide consistent intervention built into both elementary and secondary schedules. And we have extended our learning time with our PE program at the elementary level and with also having our block schedule at the middle school level. We now have time devoted for intervention. Our workshop model has always included strategy groups, which is that real-time review and remediation. Then again, as I said, we do have additional learning support. And we also have tutoring that our students 3rd through 8th grade can have access to, which we've already seen that students are now engaged with our paper program, which provides tutoring outside of school time. And then making sure that our after-school programs are very familiar with the data and their next steps for strengthening the academic portion of our ACES program. And we'd like to see our CAS system, which is usually at the end of we tried everything, now what do we do? To be really at the forefront of supporting teachers and our guiding coalitions, which is our leadership team for identifying best practices for instruction, making sure we have at the fingertips of our teachers, both in their classroom as well as our intervention time, materials that actually address the specific needs of whole small group instruction in the classroom and intervention time. That's how we are addressing moving from data to instruction for academics. Now we'd like to look at our tools that tell us where our students are in developing social and emotional skills and how we are addressing the needs of our students in that area. We have started last year, Universal Screener, which we call Panorama Survey. Our students in all grade levels have data that we gather around their social and emotional learning. And not only do we have the data, but we have a tool called our dashboard, our Panorama dashboard, which provides quick, easy access to the data results.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. I'm excited to share just our student data in terms of their social emotional needs. And we're excited to share that we're able to capture feedback from our students about how they are doing in terms of teaching and learning and their school and classroom environment. a total of 86% of our students completed the survey. I'm going to be presenting the data in 3 different grade spans. I'm going to be sharing TK2 second data for our Panorama Survey, and then 3rd through 5th, and then 6th through 8th. Next slide, please. For TK2 second grade students, our teachers actually completed the surveys for our students, and so it would be a teacher perception of our students. Our TK2 second grade student surveys that our teachers completed had a total of 10 questions. And if you see here, we have a total of 9 topics that are covered by the 10 questions that our teachers completed. So as you see here on this graph, you'll see that emotion regulation is way on the top, and you see that social perspective taking is in the bottom. So the higher the percentage, it means that they're more favorable in terms of having that skill. So on the far right column, you will see that that is a change since spring 2021. We launched this survey last winter, so we have data points of last winter, last spring, and then also this fall. So if you see this graph, we see the changes from last spring for our students. We do see here that there was a change in all of these areas and all of these 9 topics where our students did decrease, or our teachers saw the perception of our students decreasing in these areas, which gives us a baseline of where we need to work on to support all of our students. So just to capture a couple items here, in terms of self-efficacy, where our students scored 49% of favorable, this kind of asks the question of how much your students believe that they can succeed in academics. So this is, again, the teacher's point of view of how our students are seeing themselves. One other area that I did want to touch upon for TK2 second students is learning strategies. 44% of our students were identified here as being favorable in this area. And this area measures how well students deliberately use strategies to manage their own learning process. So just in those key areas, our teachers are able to see where the weaknesses are and where the strengths are in these areas. Next slide, please. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper with 2 topic areas for TK through second grade students. And we're going to be looking at the 2 areas that were identified in our LCAP of our focus area. And the first one here is grit. This is the area that was identified during for LCAP. And we're looking at this in 3 data points, one from last winter, spring, and then this fall. And as you see here, there was a slight increase from last winter to last spring, but we do see a decrease for fall. So this again shows us where our focus will be this school year, focusing on providing SEL lessons jointly with our teachers and our counselors. And just to give you a glimpse of a question that was answered for grit, it's if students fail to reach an important goal, how likely would he or she try again? So those are some sample questions that you can see what our teachers needed to answer. Next slide, please. The next focus area that our LCAP members steering committee identified was learning strategies. And this was area of need that we identified through this data point as well too. You see here that from winter to spring, we saw a increase, but from spring to fall, we saw a decrease here as well too. So a question that's answered regarding learning strategy is, overall, how well do the student's learning strategies help him or her learn more effectively? So as you're hearing this question, you will see a teacher's perspective of answering for a student in the beginning of the school year on where the student will be in terms of learning strategies. Next slide, please. So the next data that I'll be sharing is for 3rd to 5th grade students. For this survey, our students completed the survey. They answered a total of 27 questions in addition to two free response questions. And here we capture our students' feedback in 6 topic areas, which are supportive relationships, learning strategies, growth mindset, self-efficacy, challenging feelings, and emotion regulation. And again, you see here most favorable in terms of the skills that our students have is supportive relationships and emotion regulation is the area that was identified as a need here. You'll also see a column here that says compared to others nationally. So we are scoring more in average area nationally in all the areas except for supportive relationships, although that was an area that we scored highest for 3rd to 5th grade students. So that's something that was interesting to capture on our end. Next slide, please. Once again, we're diving a little bit deeper with our LCAP focus area for SEL for 3rd to 5th grade students. The area that was identified was self-efficacy. And with self-efficacy, it asks how much students believe they can succeed in achieving academic outcomes. And we see here for 3rd to 5th graders that from winter to spring, there was a slight increase and then it was steady for fall. So our students are at similar areas in terms of their confidence of self-efficacy. And just a question that there's actually a total of 5 questions that were asked to our 3rd to 5th graders. One example of the question is, how sure are you that you can learn all the topics taught in your class? So it's just as a sample question for you to know that was asked. Next slide, please. Another focus area for 3rd to 5th grade students was growth mindset. Again here, it's measuring student perceptions of whether they have the potential to change those factors that are central to their performance in school. So some questions, there are total 6 questions that were asked to identify growth mindset skills. And it's in terms of questions of in school, how possible is it for you to change in talents, efforts, behavior. So we had 6 different areas that were asked. Again, we see a steady growth in this area. And I know that with growth mindset, it has been a focus of one of our school district in terms of instilling our students of we don't know it yet, right? Versus I don't know. So we've been really working in building the skill for our students. Next slide, please. And the next set of data is looking at our student responses from our 6th through 8th graders. They had a total of 33 questions that they answered in addition to 2 response questions. You see here that our students have the most skills in terms of having supportive relationships, and the areas of need is emotion regulation, self-efficacy. And as we look at our percentages compared nationally, we do see that there's definitely work to do in learning strategies, self-efficacy, and emotion regulation for our middle schoolers. Next slide, please. Once again, looking at our LCAP focus, one of the 2 areas that we are looking at for 6th to 8th graders is self-efficacy again. We do see a steady increase across 3 data points of winter, spring, and fall. So it's good to see that in our middle school, our students' confidence is increasing each time that we are serving our students. Next slide, please. Our second LCAP focus for 6th to 8th graders, again, is growth mindset. And from last winter, spring, and fall, we see 1% increase each data point there. So once again, our students are asked, how possible is it for you to change in the different areas, whether it's behavior, academics, not easily giving up. Next slide, please. This slide is actually my favorite representation of data of our SEL survey Panorama. What you see here is a word puzzle. Actually, it's also called Wordle. And you can see that there are different words highlighted here. And you see that some words are a little bit smaller than others, and that some words are in different colors as well too. So this is actually a visual representation of the text data. And the question that was asked to the students were thinking about everything in your life right now, what feels the hardest for you? So students are doing a free response, right? And as you see the words here, if the students are responding with these words more frequently, then the words get bigger and bigger. So the more the students answer, the bigger the word gets. So if you see here, when they're, the question's asking, what feels the hardest for you? We see it in bold, big blue, mom and family, right? So we get to think, is your mom giving you a hard time, right? So we
I
looked
know
a little
who
bit
answers
deeper, and I know that it's really, really tiny on the bottom areas, but those are some samples of our student responses. And when we looked a little bit deeper, moms, rest assured, it's not that our moms are giving our students a hard time.
Right.
It's that their moms are having difficult times. So they're like, I wish my mom had more help. I wish my mom is not stressed. So just to dive deeper, it spoke volume in terms of where our students are at in terms of where their thoughts are.
I would like to add that not just the mom and the family, but 8 of the responses that were given there all have to do with family of some sort, sibling, little brother, sister, right? So that tells you how connected our families are within the home. So we made a reference to when we help our students, we help our families out. Mrs. Torres also said the same thing. When we help our families out, our students, that we're also helping our families out. So this is a great measurement for us to sort of build upon as we move forward, because we know healthy minds, healthy bodies, everything goes together, right? Healthy families, healthy students, healthy families. So we need to do, there's a lot of work that has to be done, but together we can do it all. So.
And as we know, and as research states, student perceptions strongly correlate with learning strategies. So just having this information is such a big improvement tool for us as educators.
Before we move on to the next slide, I just wanted to call your attention to, from the word puzzle goes to the actual words that were used and how often. But as you can see, the list that's there, counselors can actually click on that, the little flags, and actually see students who are in need of support based on the comments that they gave in the survey. It's a very, I want to say, intimate and personal way of identifying the needs of our students and responding to them. Ed Services team, we spent several hours just clicking on every single one of those statements to make sure that our students did not fall from the cracks. And then next slide, please. And then Director One, make sure that she sat with the counselors, went over the same data and mapped out a plan to respond to the data. So we call this really going from the broad perspective, narrowing down or drilling down, but there's also another term we like to use, and that's faces to data. We actually know our students and now what they need in this arena, where before it was a guess based on discipline referrals. It was a guess based on attendance data, but now we actually have a way of meeting the needs of our students in this myriad of SEL categories, but also if there is a red flag, if there is a real point of need that needs to be addressed, we now have the counselors to be able to do that, both our site counselors and then our outreach counselors. Our counselors are also supporting our students at all levels. We now have a very strong and robust bank of activities and lessons that we can pull on that matches the exact data, both for individual needs, small group intervention, and whole group needs. And tier 2, again, we have those faces that our counselors can connect with. Our tier 3 intervention are those students who may have a clinical diagnosis or in trauma at any given time. We can respond to them all in different arenas with different continuum of support. I'd like to also add this, in addition to our counselors and our outreach concern interns, we also have our transitional coaches coming on board. And the first coach walked in and said, where are my 85 students? I'm going to start my groups right away. So I think for the first time, not only do we have staff to address the needs of our students, we have the data, both broad and specific, to have direct intervention that meets the needs of our students across a continuum of supports. We also have a process, the CAS process we use in academics, and that's identifying students who maybe first go round of intervention, tier 1 and tier 1, they still need more. We have a group that can come together with our counselors, with our transitional coaches, with our school psychologists, and any specialist on our campus that can help design a program specifically for small groups or individuals. We know that tier 1, our PBIS, is most important because that helps to build connections. One of the things that we know, besides, a healthy body is a healthy mind, but how we help students to develop an idea of what behavior expectations or for all of our areas, go into then creating more time to learn because we have less need to respond to behaviors. And then our care solas, we've had great response. We say unfortunately a great response of using this. Remember, this is access to interventions at tier 2 and tier 3 as our community identifies a need personally and their families, as our staff identifies a need personally or in their families. But just as importantly, when our counselors see that we need stronger, more intensive intervention, we can access this care solas that everybody has access to through our website. Our feedback has been that the care solas services are top notch. They're meeting our expectations. Our counselors can get information quickly from the company, and they can also alert us of any flags that are out there that we need to be attentive to. Next slide. And now we have time for questions or comments on our board member.
I actually have a comment and question, clarifying question. One, thank you for all the hard work. I know data is always overwhelming, just as much as financials are. So it's with you. I know that
Coming up
I
next.
appreciate data as much as I appreciate the financials. When you said tier 3, we said that's with special cases, or that's when there's 2 or 3 or more grade levels below?
Well, now we know it needs to be wherever our assessment tells us. So if we have a student in either academics or behavior that needs tier 3, we're still responsible for responding to what we're doing in the classroom tier 1. And then if we can also do any additional interventions, either through tutoring or through other small group instruction, we do that as well. But yes, tier 3 is our most intensive area of support.
And that's in general left to the sites to work with a plan within their teachers, that they monitor the
Yes, and that-
direction.
And at that point, that's also working with our CAS system. So we, our California MTSS that we are a strong proponent of through our training with OCD says we need to kind of dissolve those categorical labels. And at that point, tier 2, tier 3, all of our experts at the school site need to band together to create a plan for our students who need the most intensive. We do now have curriculum for both reading and math that we can use in academics. And then again, we have greater resources for our students that are intensive in our mental health class.
So just based on that, then if we look at the initial placements for reading and math, we would say 40% or so are starting at 2 or more below.
Yes. So in our curriculum, we do, especially at the elementary level, and we have our strategic groups, which iReady actually puts kids into groups. So we can see right away, which is our students that need tier 1, which is reviewing. So if you're tier 2, you're probably going to need reviewing of tier 1. So that's our strategy groups that are built in our block of ELA. Then we have a time set aside, and this in elementary looking specifically at reading now. That's where we're kind of capturing that time. So we have a specific time where we're calling that access, universal access. So either you are an ELD group or you're working on academic language in both elementary and middle school. And then we have our academy teachers at the elementary that are pulling our intensive tier 3 students to work with them 3 to 4 times a week. That's a very small intensive group, and we're focusing on reading this year.
Thank you. And just my other comment was interesting data from a district I work. The data looks always it's flipped on what we have. So I want to give kudos probably to our K1, 2, 3, like really our first graders. This is their first time being in person in school. And the data actually looks really good. The fact that a lot of them are coming in not too far behind. So that's actually, I think, very positive, because usually when I'm looking at other districts' data, first grade, second grade, and kinder were like definitely not in a good starting point. So I actually think that's a great job on our planning, on our teachers, and our efforts. That distance learning, however crazy it was and not that difficult it was, it really didn't affect our learning too much, it seems like, from the data. So I just want to throw that out there and saying kudos to our lower primary teachers, because that's a difficult thing to do, and you can see the data supports that they were doing a good job.
Any other questions?
Well, that was actually my question. Jason kind of touched on it. I was wondering if, I know that, they probably reflect a lot of other similar districts around us that, the numbers aren't where we would like them to be, especially seeing the tier 3 at 40%. Is there a way that iReady gives us a look at how our district is like looking at other districts or maybe nationwide? I don't know how
Not
far.
other districts, but throughout California, yes, we can gather that data. We'll do
Yeah,
that
just
for
so
you.
that we could see where we're at, because I know everyone's having the same problem. Everyone went through COVID. It wasn't just our district. So that way it'll just give us maybe a little peace of mind knowing that it's not just us going through this.
We can definitely include it in the Friday report.
Yes, we'll make sure we have that for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just my understanding, isn't iReady nationally normed anyways, the data, so the
Yes, it
assessments are
is.
or normed, yeah, so we can.
And it was, I think, wildly used throughout California when we were allowed to use local assessment tools. Most districts did rely on iReady for their local assessments.
So there's a lot of data out there right now.
Yes,
A lot of data.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going on to action calendar. Approval of the 2021 elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER 3 expenditure plan.
Yeah, so some of the things we talked about here with the academic interventions and the SEL are in the expenditure plan. We anticipated in cabinet working with administrators, listening to our teachers, some of the things that we anticipated were a need for counselors, a need for elected teachers to engage students at the tier 1 level. So here to talk a little bit more about the ESSER 3 expenditure plan is Dr. Yvette Cantu. Dr. Cantu.
Well, besides having a lot of data, we got a lot of plans. You know what they say to Spider-Man, with power comes great responsibility. And with federal funds comes many plans and accountability. So ironically, the federal government, although they've been responsive with funding for us to be able to respond more appropriately due to COVID-19 mitigations with academics, safety, and social emotional needs of our students. Not every pot of money comes with a plan. We have ESSER 1, 2, and then ESSER 3 does have a plan. So we want to share with you what we proposed in our plan, and also would like you to know that every so often we get to revise the plan just in case conditions change or needs change. Next slide, please. The purpose of the ESSER 3 plan is really to address the elementary and secondary needs due to COVID-19, the pandemic, as it reflects in academics, social, emotional, and mental health of our students. It also must be highly influenced by our community stakeholders and their reflection on our programs and current needs as they see is needed for our students. And so not only do we have our LCAP and our ELO plan highly influenced by stakeholder input, but now so does the ESSER 3 plan. And because the federal government and the state for once says, you've done a lot of plans, they've given us an opportunity to align these plans together. So in the ESSER 3, you will see reference to both our LCAP and our ELO plan. Next slide. Of our total expenditures granted to our district, we've planned in 3 categories: continuous and safe in-person learning, the impact of lost instructional time, and then opportunities for learning that maybe students did not have or now will see need for due to the learning loss or time lost in learning during distance learning. Next slide. Let's take a look at what we plan to ensure that our students can return to a safe learning environment. We've added additional staff in both our nursing services as well as the extra support such as healthcare aides, health aides, and the ability to have additional staff on campus so that we can manage our safety protocols. We've added also in our plan the cost of making sure that we have clean and filtered air in our classrooms by both supplies as well as also looking at personal equipment as well. And then we want to also make sure that we continue to have access through hotspots and other devices for all of our students, kindergarten, preschool, TK, all the way to 8th grade will continue to have the devices that they can take home and use so that they can have both learning during school time and outside of school time. So our first category is really to respond to the health and safety needs of our students so that we can, and I should say staff as well, so that we can continuously have in-person learning. Next slide. The next category that the plan has been asked to respond to, and that is the impact of loss of instructional time. And this is where we're really looking at best practices in order to accelerate and to maintain strong academics success through supports. At our elementary, we've increased the learning time by having intervention time throughout the day, that we can have small groups in the classroom because students go out to PE teachers, or because we've added tutorial services that extend beyond the school day. We will include summer programs, both for our EL focus as well as other students who need to have additional learning opportunities. And then at our middle school, we wanted to make sure that we have small groups and smaller groups that students have connectedness with their teacher and a sense of belonging because they are working on meaningful activities. So we've increased the ability for having additional classes, elective classes at the middle school. At elementary, we wanted to continue to focus, as our data says, on math. And so we've added math teachers or academy teachers that will have really an influence on the number of students in the academy during math time, as well as be able to focus instruction at the level of students that are in the classroom. Next slide. ESSER 3 does have an opportunity to respond to learning that may not have been afforded due to distance learning, or that we want to make sure we add to our program or strengthen our program with, so that our students that may not have had those opportunities during distance learning will now have those opportunities. And so we've identified several areas that we want to strengthen so that we can increase engagement in our students and heighten both career experience, career and college readiness experiences through our speech and debate program. We want to make sure that that beautiful new music program has students that actually have instruments and learning time. So we are strengthening that program with our music program. And then we know that we must be very mindful, as you've seen in our data, of meeting the needs of our students in their social, emotional, and mental health. So, and we also needed to be proactive to make sure that we are ready for any supports that may need. And so at the middle school, we do have a program specialist that will support not only with implementation, but with training of best practices, SEL, restorative practices, PBIS. And then at the elementary, we've added those counselors so that every school does have a counselor. As you can see, we already talked about the not only best practices, but the data that we have to make sure that those interventions are targeted interventions. Next slide. The ESSER plan, outside of how you're spending the money, has the sense of accountability of making sure how you use the funds is not only deliberate, but is meeting the outcome that we've identified. And so this plan does have specifics as to how we are going to do the progress monitoring of the academic, physical, social, emotional, and the mental health development of our students. As you can see, it kind of mirrors the data that we've already talked about. We made sure that we have universal screener tools, which means all students will take these assessments, both for SEL and academics, so that we can identify the needs of our students. From those universal screeners that all students take, then we will be then looking at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 interventions that we will monitor in a myriad of ways, as you can see under our progress monitoring, the frequency of it. Both our universal screeners beginning, mid, and end of the year, looking at our dashboards, that Panorama, and the Panorama dashboard also links so that we have the academic scores of our students as well as the Panorama social emotional scores of our students, and any referrals such as attendance as well as discipline needs. So we do have that at our fingertips. We also want to make sure that not only are we doing progress monitoring of our students that are engaged in interventions, but really look at our programs to make sure that if our students aren't doing their best, how can we change the programs or strengthen the programs? So not only we do progress monitoring of students, but progress and evaluation of programs around through our student surveys, through our counselors. I should say the counselors are taking copious notes through their records, as well as through what our leadership teams are discovering about our programs and our community stakeholders. We will continue to tap into their voice as well. And then we also want to make sure that this is monitored, progress is monitored through our CAS system, where we looking at those students who we want to be mindful of tier 2 and tier 3, and our grade level or department teams, that's our PLT teams that are actually doing mini CAS. Weekly, they're looking at data, they're looking at best practices, and they're looking at student progress. Next slide, or last slide. Are there any questions or clarifications?
Great, thank you, Dr. Cantu. And I do want to thank the fiscal services team who worked with Michelle Santana and Dr. Cantu to actually put these plans together. There's multiple ones coming down the pike. There's the LCAP one, there's a new educator effectiveness one, and this one's back for change. And at the end of the year, it's every 2 months, so that there's another plan coming down the pike. I'm just asking the board to approve the elementary and secondary emergency relief ESSER 3 expenditure plan.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Ahmad, and I think I heard Ms. Castaneda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. I wanted data and numbers. We got both. Thank you. Approval of K8 grade designated.
President Trump, can we just note that?
Oh, sorry. Let it be
Fruitos
noted
is
that
doing- Yeah,
Mr. Frutos is joining our meeting.
time at 6:27.
At 6:27.
Thank you.
Thank you. That means we're able to vote from here on out.
He can from here on out.
Moving on into approval of K8 designated ELD English language development materials adoption. Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, designated ELD materials have been considered for adoption, have been presented to our stakeholders, including our teachers, administrators, and parents. The proposed materials were on display in our district PDC for stakeholders to view and comment on. We are recommending for adoption of language power exclamation point for elementary and English 3D for middle school.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. Thank you, Ms. Shed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Oh,
Five.
did I say 4?
I didn't hear you.
Sorry, 5-0. Moving on to approval to award bid 13-2021 for playground equipment installation, surface padding, and turf at elementary schools. Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, it's recommended the governing board award bid 13-2021 for playground installation, equipment installation, surface pad and turf at elementary schools to Legion contractors.
Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Shed. Thank you, Ms. Castaneda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
And now, now that it's been approved, we'll reach out to Legion contractors who will provide a timeline and let us know when this is going to start happening. So excited about that.
And this is the appointed discussion calendar. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Discussion calendar, regular governing board meeting date for November 2021. Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, as requested, there's been a need for an initial board meeting in November. 2 dates. We still have our November 9th board meeting, it's a special board meeting for the board's self-evaluation. But an additional board meeting is being requested. 2 dates, both Monday nights are being proposed that are November 15th and November 29th. And I'd like the board to discuss what preference they have for either one.
15 or 29, you said yes.
Correct.
I mean, no problem here, just what was needed
Is it better to have it earlier in the month?
While there is a need to, we do have, as you're well aware, our buses were broken into and our catalytic converters were stolen. Thank you for the mechanic who gave me a lowdown on what those catalytic converters do. But 3 of our buses were broken into. We do have a need to buy a bus. And through the procurement process, Sandy Pote, our Chief Financial Officer, has located a company. And the longer we wait, the longer it may be for us to buy things. So the sooner would be better. And it would be about a month away from our next board meeting as well.
So it's not something we can just buy the piece for them anymore.
No. And they're outdated. These buses are, I mean, they need to come off of the road now.
Would they be electric, the new ones?
No,
Just the one from the grant that we're.
Correct.
getting, right?
Correct. Yes, we have one from the grant, and then we are looking to purchase one additional bus. Buses are typically over 200 days from date of order to delivery. We found a company that has one available in stock 30 days from the date we can approve the purchase. But we need a bid. So we found a piggybackable bid. We need to bring that bid forward at the next board meeting. And once that's approved, then we would be able to issue a purchase order for the bus.
Okay, then I'm in favor of the earlier date. The
We
November
can
15th.
approve it or have it in the agenda for when our special meeting.
I really want to keep that focused on the special meeting. Unless the board's okay opening up. I mean, that means we will have that one in November. But I thought I had heard that we needed a second one beyond that, which is a week later. We could do that, yes, we could do that, should the board want to open up, but I mean, it's already a special, we could include that in the special board meeting as well. What's that?
29th will look better for me.
15.
I'm open on both days, so either the 15th or the 29th would be good for me.
I'm the same.
It sounds like the 29th it is? Is that what I'm
Yes.
I
hearing?
mean, I would prefer the 15th, but I
15th.
mean, it's fine, whichever day.
Okay, and then maybe we'll look at the piggyback, if we can get it in, maybe we can include that, just that one item into the agenda. I'll talk to Aaron about that, see if we can get that. Well, that report's a public comment report, right? That has to be done, and we'll do that in November, not at the special board meeting. Correct, yes. There's another,
Next one you decide right now? She's saying, Dr. Kenzie's saying she'll present on the one that we're deciding on right now. or-
correct, yes, so the 29th. There's a public hearing for the Educator Effectiveness Grant. Which we just received the allocation last week, and it's due, you have to have a public hearing, and then you have to provide the plan and approval, and we just received the information last week, as a matter of fact, I think last Friday, is when I got noticed. It's a good thing for us, because it's more money coming in. So if I'm hearing everybody correctly, it's at the 29th then.
Well, one and
Yes.
one split, I don't know.
Well, 4.
We're okay, either one, 3 of us are fine either way.
You want to make a motion then?
Yeah, this is discussion. We're locking it in.
Right.
A motion for the governing board November meeting to be on the 29th.
I'll second.
First, Shed second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0 to have the meeting on November 29th.
Thank you.
And then online governing board policies and administrative regulations, policies to rename and renumber.
Yeah, I want to thank Aaron McPhillips, who keeps us on our toes with policies. And just her efforts to reconcile our policies with the CSBA's new Gamut online platform. CSB has received our identified policies that are unique to our district, but similar to their existing policies. As a result of the review, CSB recommends that the governing board rename and renumber the unique policies to match theirs in their codification system. Doing so will allow the district to be alerted to updates that will likely impact our unique policies. So you've got a list of policies there. There's 4 of them. Board Policy 2260, promotional activities, Board Policy 3351, refreshments at district functions, and an AR 0511R-R parentheses 1, energy and water conservation, and AR 3320.2, R parentheses 1, student injury site procedure. And we're asking that you change them to match the titles and the numbers in CSB's gamma system. They'll be on the consent for the next one.
Moving on to board policy adoption review revision deletion.
Yeah, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Cantu, who has quite a few adoptions from her services department. Dr. Cantu.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Miramontes. Yes, we have a total of 5 board policies, 4 revisions, and 1 new policy that we make the recommendation that our board adopt as Buena Park board policies. All the policies are now, the revisions are in line with CSBA's recommendation and language that reflects the new state laws and regulations. BA 4131 is staff development is revised to reflect the new law of AB 130 regarding independent studies. It's updated to enhance staff development regarding school climate to include acceptance, civility, positive behavioral supports, and it's also allowed to have professional development around these areas of mental health as well as physical health. Board Policy 6120 has been revised to respond to the instruction and intervention of social emotional mental health as it appears in our California MTSS tiered support model. Board Policy 6164.4, identification and evaluation of individuals for special education, is being revised to reaffirm the obligation that a district has to fully implement a free-based education for our students during this COVID-19 pandemic. We know that for some of our families that we may not have full engagement during distance learning, or we have not brought back into our system, this board policy says we do have the responsibility to go out and look for those students and to inform parents and guardians of our obligation to service them. 6164.5 is student success team. This has been revised to include best practices. We know that MTSS is not a legal requirement, but the state of California has identified the MTS model of identifying students' academic needs, behavior needs, and mental health and social emotional well-being as best practices that all districts should invest in. It also identifies the need to do professional learning around mental health supports. I think we're starting to see a theme, correct? Not only our data is around academics and social emotional, but our board policies are now being revised to equally look at academics as well as behavior, social emotional needs of our students. The final board policy is a new one. We have not had a board policy around children with disabilities enrolled by their parents in private school. This also mimics the previous board policy on special ed, which says that we have the obligation of child find to look for those students regardless of where they are enrolled in public school or private school. If they are part of our community, we must do an outreach to their parents to let them know that we are responsible for servicing their students if they are in need and are eligible for special ed services. We're also need to be mindful that we must set aside funding to service these students. These are the 5 revised or 1 new board policy that we are recommending that our board approve and adopt.
And we'll bring that back to the consent calendar next time. Any questions regarding these board policies? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then job description, middle school guidance specialist.
Yes, I'll have Mr. Harrison, our Chief Personnel Officer, talk a little bit more about this, but as you've heard, the term wellness. Both our board members, Ahmad and Shed, had visited the middle school, and there's a need there to have other students be engaged. And this is one way we feel that will be it's a short-term position. I'll turn it over to Mr. Russell Harrison.
Good evening, President Chong and members of the governing board. As students have returned to in-person instruction across the district, school staff have noted that many pupils are needing assistance as they reacclimate to the academic and social structure of school, and they would benefit from additional guidance from caring adults. The middle school guidance specialist job description before you tonight is intended to provide supplemental wellness support in the 2021-2022 school year to middle school students. The guidance specialists will be able to check in with students throughout the day to promote safe, respectful, and responsible behavior, and to serve as a liaison with families, connecting them with additional resources and agencies that can extend wellness beyond the school hours. The position and its funding align with the intent of the one-time dollars of ESSER funding, which are intended to aid in the support of students' successful transition to in-person learning. Does the board have any questions about the job description?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And they're on their way to contact trace right now. Just got notified. Thank you.
Moving on to consent calendar, unless a trustee has a question concerning a particular item and asks that it be withdrawn from the consent calendar, the items are approved at one time by the governing board. Ms. Ahmad?
I have nothing.
Ms. Shedd?
I have nothing to remove.
Mr. Frutos? Ms. Shedd? Ms. Castaneda?
I have nothing.
I have nothing either. Do I have a motion? To approve.
I'll motion.
Castaneda, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Shedd, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Information correspondence, renumbering of unique policies.
Yes, I just want to thank, again, Erin McPhillips for her support to renumber these. I also want to point out the Williams settlement legislation we had for Q1. Any complaints? And I do want to point out that November 8th is a special board meeting on the major topics, special board meeting, and we will add to the calendar here November 29th. And then December 13th, we'll have our annual reorganization meeting. So we added an extra board meeting for Mr. Chung here. Two more, Mr. Chung. Hold on for two more and then open it up.
Sounds
Can you
good.
hold on for that?
I think I can make it.
All right, thank you. Finish strong.
Sounds good. Going on to closed session, conferences with Ramon Miramontes, Superintendent of the Buena Park School District, Labor Relations, Buena Park Teacher Association, Labor Relations, California School Employee Association, Chapter 569, Labor Relations, Non-Represented Management and Confidential Contract Employees, Public Employee Dismissal, Discipline, Dismissal, and Release. Do I have a motion to go to closed session? Firdaus, thank you. Ms. Ahmad, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and zoning board is called to close session at 6:42. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. It was all upside. start or? No.
I didn't do that.
We are live. Do I have a motion to reconvene? Mr. Rose, second,
Second.
Ms. Shed, all in favor?
Aye.
Governing board meeting reconvened at 7:48 PM. Nothing to report out of closed session. We have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Thank you. Ahmad, second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.